Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. My nephew already had the ring box open when I walked in. The lid leaned back, his hand hovered over it like he got caught. He jerked around fast, eyes huge, lips pressed tight like he swallowed something. I am Elise and I was 29 when this happened, and my stomach dropped before my brain caught up. I had not looked at my hand yet, but I already felt naked. Logan, my voice came out sharper than I meant. He flinched and shoved his right hand behind his back, way too quick. The jewelry box sat on my dresser with that stupid empty cushion showing. He tried to smile and it looked wrong, like a kid in a school photo. That fake little grin should have told me everything right then. "What are you doing in here?" I stepped closer, careful and slow. He shifted his weight and kept his arm pinned, knuckles turning white. "You're not supposed to be in my room, remember that deal?" "I was just looking," he muttered, eyes sliding past me toward the door. Kids look away when they lie, but this felt bigger than some candy. I finally looked at my hand, and my heart did this weird lurch. The skin on my finger had that small pale groove where the ring sat. I always spin it when I am stressed, except there was nothing there. "Where is my ring?" My voice went flat and low, even I heard it. His gaze snapped to my finger like he only just noticed too. He shook his head fast, hair bouncing, whole body saying no, no, no. "I didn't touch it," came out way too quick to sound real. I stared at his hidden hand, the shape of his fist under the sleeve. "Then show me your hand," I said, trying to sound calm and reasonable. He took one tiny step back, heel bumping the dresser with a dull thud. I said, "Show me." I reached for his arm and he yanked away hard. He let out this high scream, way louder than the situation deserved. "Mom," he shouted, like I had grabbed a knife instead of his wrist. I froze for half a second because I knew what was coming next. The door down the hall opened and my stress turned into straight dread. "What is going on?" My sister's voice sliced through the hallway fast. Logan ran around me and glued himself to her side, shaking hard. "She grabbed me," he blurted, already working up tears in his voice. I was still standing by the dresser like the villain in a cheap movie. "My engagement ring is gone," I said, and the words tasted like metal. My sister narrowed her eyes at me, then at the open box. "You probably misplaced it," she said, already rubbing his back in slow circles. "I did not misplace a whole diamond," I said, heat building in my chest. I pointed at Logan's hidden hand because at that point it felt obvious. "Then why will he not open his hand if he did nothing?" Her expression shifted, not to concern for me but to annoyance. "He is 8, she snapped, like that age made him legally innocent. "You are scaring him over a ring, Elise, listen to yourself right now." Logan pressed his face into her shirt and sniffled louder for effect. I felt like I was watching a scene where everyone got my role wrong. "Logan, please," I softened my tone because maybe that would help. "If it is in your hand, just give it back and we are done." He peeked out at me, eyes bright and strangely stubborn for such a small person. "I told you I don't have it," he said, every word spaced like a dare. I knew he was lying and he knew that I knew, and he did not care. My sister moved her body between us, a small human wall. "You lose stuff all the time," she said, throwing that line like evidence. "Check your bathroom, your purse, maybe you left it in the kitchen." I wanted to argue that I had been wearing it earlier that morning. The memory of twisting it during coffee flashed, then blurred under her stare. I turned away from them and started tearing through the top of the dresser. Not careful, not neat, just pushing aside whatever blocked my view. Bottom of the jewelry box empty, small tray beside it empty too. Each little space I checked just made the air inside my chest thinner. Behind me, I heard my nephew whisper something into her shirt and laugh. "Mark," I yelled for my fiancé without looking away from the mess. He was somewhere down the hall with the game on, half listening as usual. "What?" His voice floated back, annoyed and confused in equal measure. "My ring is gone," I called, and I hated how close it sounded to a cry. Footsteps started toward us and I felt my pulse climb even higher. He stepped into the doorway and took in the scene in one sweep. Open drawers, my sister shielding Logan, me standing there with empty hands. "What do you mean gone?" He looked from my fingers to the dresser. I met his eyes and felt this wave of shame, like I had failed a test. It was in the box and now it is not, and he was here. My sister straightened up like she had been waiting for a bigger audience. "Your fiancé is accusing my son of stealing her ring," she announced. The way she said it made me sound hysterical, like I had lost my mind. Mark's jaw tightened as he glanced between us, trying to pick a side. For a split second I saw doubt there, and it burned more than anything. "I walked in and he was holding the box," I said, forcing each word. "He shoved something behind his back, and now the ring is gone." Logan shook his head harder, tears finally spilling down his face. "I didn't, I swear, I just wanted to see it," he choked out. That small added line twisted the knife, because now it sounded believable. Mark rubbed his face and exhaled, slow and frustrated, eyes on the floor. "Could it have fallen somewhere?" he asked, voice too calm for my panic. "Maybe it slipped behind the dresser or under the bed, something simple." I knew he was trying to de-escalate, not accuse me, not accuse a child. Still, it felt like sandpaper over raw skin, because I needed someone firm. We pulled the dresser away from the wall and checked the gap behind it. Nothing but dust and a few random things that did not matter now. We lifted the edge of the mattress, checked along the frame, knelt on the floor. Every movement just underlined the same cold fact over and over again. The ring was not hiding, it was gone, and the only new variable was Logan. My sister would not let him leave her side while we searched every corner. She kept talking about how this was traumatizing him, how he looked terrified. "He is shaking, Elise. Do you see what you are doing to him right now?" I glanced up and he did look shaken, but his eyes still sparkled. There was something almost pleased in them, and that scared me way more. Standing there in my own bedroom, I felt strangely outnumbered. My fiancé trying to stay neutral, my sister on full defensive mode. A kid with his fist still hidden, and a story that kept slightly changing. I kept replaying the first second in my mind like a broken clip. If I had moved faster, maybe my hand would not feel this empty now. I dumped a laundry basket onto the couch and dug through everything. Behind me, Mark dragged the recliner away from the wall, grunting under his breath. My sister perched on the armrest with Logan glued to her side. He swung his legs and watched us turn the room upside down. For someone supposedly terrified, he looked pretty entertained. "Check under the cushions again," my voice came out too tight. Mark lifted one end of the couch and shoved his arm deep into the gap. "Nothing but crumbs," he muttered, brushing off his hands with a low sigh. My sister rolled her eyes and stroked Logan's hair like he was fragile glass. "You two are treating this like a crime scene," she said, slow and cutting. I ignored her and got on my knees under the coffee table. My knees hit the floor hard, and it actually cleared my head a little. "You sure it did not fall in the bathroom earlier?" Mark looked toward the hallway. "I am sure," I answered quicker than I planned, jaw clenched way too tight. The way he studied me made my chest prickle, like I stood under a spotlight. "People take jewelry off all the time and forget," he tried, tone low and careful. "I did not forget," I repeated, forcing each word out like a separate block. My sister let out a short laugh that did not match the situation at all. "You misplaced it, Elise, you do that constantly," she tossed out like fact. Logan's mouth twitched at the corner and then flattened again. "Fine," I snapped, pushing to my feet so fast my leg nearly cramped. "I will check the bathroom again, and the kitchen, and everywhere else." I was already moving before anyone answered, heart pounding in my ears. Every room I ran through felt smaller, not because of size, just pressure. I opened drawers, checked the sink, even flipped through the trash with shaking hands. Nothing, just nothing, like the ring had never existed at all. I stared at my bare finger again and hated how helpless I felt. In the doorway, Mark studied me, arms folded, trying not to look frustrated. "If it slipped off in the car, we will never find it inside the vacuum," he said. "Let us at least go look there before we tear the whole place apart." We walked out to the driveway, and I yanked open the passenger door. I checked the cup holders, the floor, the door pockets, every obvious spot. Mark leaned across the driver's seat and checked beneath the pedals and mat. The whole time, I replayed the moment I had walked in on Logan. That first frozen look on his face felt louder than any explanation now. Back inside, my sister had moved to the living room again with Logan. He sprawled on the couch with a throw pillow hugged tight to his chest. The TV was on now, low volume, like they were just waiting us out. Nothing in the car, Mark said, running a hand over his face. My sister glanced at him, then at me, like she had just won something. "This is getting ridiculous," she announced, lifting her chin a little too high. "Your turn." In the whole house upside down over a piece of jewelry. I walked closer to the couch, and the pillow tightened in Logan's grip. "It is not just an accessory," I answered, quieter than before, voice shaking. "I watched someone in my bedroom right before it vanished." My sister's eyes flashed. "You are not calling my son a thief again." Her arm wrapped around him, and he leaned into her like they practiced this. I focused on him, not her, because his reaction mattered more right then. "Logan," I said, forcing air into my lungs, "look at me for a second." He shifted his gaze up, slow and almost bored, like this was a game. "If you grabbed it because it looked cool, I get that, I really do." I kept my tone as even as I could, even though my throat felt tight. "You can hand it back and this ends today, nobody has to dwell on it." His eyes flicked to my hand, then my face, then away toward the TV. "I told you I did not take it," he answered, voice oddly steady for his age. That calm tone rattled me more than his earlier tears. Kids usually wobble when they lie, their voices crack or rush. He spoke like this had shifted into something else, something deliberate. "You know it is wrong to keep something that is not yours," I tried again. The air in the room thickened so much it felt hard to swallow. My sister jumped in before he could respond. "Enough," she stood up so fast the cushion bounced under him. "You are cornering him over your own mistake, this needs to stop." Mark stepped closer like a referee who never asked for that job. "Maybe we all need a breather," he murmured, eyes on me, not her. I hated how that sounded, like I was the only one out of control. He was in my room with my jewelry box right before it vanished. I heard myself and knew I was repeating the same point again and again. Still, it was the only solid thing I had, the only anchor in this mess. Without that piece, the whole story turned into me losing something expensive. My sister moved toward the hallway with Logan still glued to her side. "We are going to his room," she tossed over her shoulder in a clipped tone. "He needs quiet, not interrogation, and you need to calm down." Logan glanced back at me once, just once, over her shoulder. His mouth curled into the tiniest smile, gone in less than a second. That look hit harder than any of her words. Up until then, I kept telling myself maybe I had misread everything. Maybe I had overreacted, maybe stress made me jump to conclusions. That little flash of satisfaction did not match fear or confusion at all. It matched someone who knew exactly how cornered I felt. Mark touched my elbow, gentle but firm, guiding me toward the kitchen. "Let them cool off," he said, reaching for a glass from the cabinet. "You know your sister, once she digs in like this she will not budge." I leaned on the counter, trying to steady my breathing into something normal. "Do you think I am wrong about him?" I finally asked, barely above a whisper. He hesitated, which told me more than any answer could. "I think you are upset," he started, choosing every word like it might explode. "I also think jewelry goes missing in houses all the time, even important ones." My stomach twisted, because that sounded a lot like maybe you dropped it somewhere. I needed one person to say I was not completely losing it, and I was not getting that. "I did not misplace it," I insisted, softer now but still stubborn. "Okay," he replied, that single word hanging between us like a fragile truce. "Then we should keep looking, maybe call the store, check insurance, whatever." That was the first time insurance entered the conversation, and I almost flinched. It made the loss feel official, like we were planning for never finding it. The rest of the evening blurred into this frantic circuit through the house. Drawers, closets, under rugs, behind furniture, even the laundry machine. Each place turned up nothing and more nothing. My anger slowly shifted into something colder and heavier. It stopped feeling like a search and started feeling like a line had been crossed. Later, when the house finally went quiet, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling. Mark's breathing beside me stayed slow and even, like he had shut the whole thing off. Everyone else could move on for the night, call it a mystery, and go to sleep. I kept seeing my nephew's tiny half-smile at the end of the hallway. That look sat in the dark with me and whispered that this was only the beginning. I am not showing you. That is the first thing I heard that day, sharp from down the hall. I stopped mid-stir over my coffee and just listened. It is my secret treasure, Logan added, voice lower and weirdly proud. My skin prickled before my brain even formed a thought. I left the mug on the counter and moved toward the bedrooms. Their door was almost closed, just enough space for sound to escape. If you do not show me. I am telling my mom, another kid warned. There was a short shuffle, like someone jerked their hand away fast. Then a hissing whisper from Logan that I could not fully catch. I nudged the door open with my fingers and both kids jumped. Logan sat cross-legged on the floor, friend opposite with wide eyes. His hand was curled tight against his chest like he hid something precious. Hey, I said, leaning on the frame like I had not heard a thing. What are you two up to in here? Logan's gaze went flat and careful, that quick calculation I recognized now. Nothing, he answered, shifting so his body blocked his fist more. The other boy glanced at his hand and then at me, caught in the middle. It looked like a princess ring, the kid blurted and then froze. Everything in me went silent, like someone turned the volume down inside. What? My voice came out too smooth, which is how I knew I was rattled. The boy swallowed and stared at the carpet, suddenly shy. Just a ring, he mumbled, shoulders curling forward like he wanted to vanish. Logan elbowed him hard, not playful, straight-up warning. The energy in that tiny room shifted from kid play to something sharp. I crouched down so I was near their level, heart pounding in my ears. Logan, open your hand, I said, looking him straight in the face. His fingers tightened and his jaw moved like he was chewing the choice. You are freaking out over a toy, he answered, chin tilting up. That word toy hit me almost harder than the friend's slip. If it is just a toy, then show me and we are done. I kept my tone even, because any edge would just make me the bully. The other boy looked between us like a ref stuck in the wrong game. Logan shoved to his feet, bumped my knee and backed toward the door. I do not have your ring, he threw over his shoulder as he squeezed past. Your what? My sister's voice floated from the hallway right on cue. She appeared with that bright fake smile she uses when company is around. Everything okay in here? Her hand landed on Logan's shoulder too quickly. Yes, he answered fast, pressing into her side like she was a shield. My hands started to shake, and I had to tuck them under my arms. Tyler, she chirped at the other kid, too cheerful for the tension, your mom is coming soon. That was news to me, considering the playdate had barely started. She scooped up his backpack and dropped it near the door like an order. We can do snacks next time, she added, already steering them outward. The whole thing felt like someone slamming a door in my face. When they moved down the hall, I stayed in the room alone. I felt ridiculous standing there with my pulse racing over a child's game. But that word treasure kept looping in my head like an alarm. I scanned the floor, under the edge of the bed, under a scattered book. Nothing shiny, nothing small, nothing to prove what I had heard. At the front door, I caught the tail end of the goodbye. Remember what we talked about, my sister murmured to Logan near the porch. His shoulders dropped the second Tyler stepped outside and waved. As soon as the door closed, he turned and spotted me in the hallway. The look in his eyes was not scared at all, just alert. We are not doing this again, my sister snapped once the lock clicked. She crossed her arms over her chest and planted herself between us. You are hovering and listening at doors, this is not healthy. He had something in his hand, I answered, keeping my voice steady. And his friend literally used the word ring. A plastic thing from a vending machine, probably, she tossed back. He loves those stupid trinkets, you know that you have seen them. Maybe that was true, which irritated me more because it gave her cover. He will not let me see it, I insisted, hearing my own desperation. It sounded awful even to me, like I wanted to win against a child. That is because he feels hunted in his own home, she bit out. Back off, Elise, before you damage this relationship permanently. She walked away before I could answer, dragging Logan down the hallway. He glanced back just long enough to flash that quick little almost smile. I am telling you, there was nothing innocent in that tiny expression. The rest of the afternoon dragged with this thick, uneven silence. Mark worked in the next room, pretending this was all background noise. I did chores, simple things, just to keep myself from pacing like a maniac. Every now and then I heard low voices from my sister's room. Each muffled word made my shoulders creep higher toward my ears. At one point I walked past and caught a clearer line. "You do not repeat stories to people who twist them," my sister warned. Logan made a quiet sound I could not place, half laugh, half grunt. "You promised, remember," she added, and the bed creaked under shifting weight. That promise dug under my skin and just stayed there the rest of the day. By evening Art called us all for takeout at the table. He tried to joke about work, little random things, anything light. My sister responded just enough so it would not be obvious. Logan barely touched his food, but not because he looked upset. He kept glancing at my hands like he enjoyed the empty space. "You two seem quiet," Mark remarked, chewing slowly as his eyes moved between us. "Long day," my sister answered first, wiping her mouth and avoiding my face. I pushed rice around my plate, appetite gone hours ago. Every time my finger brushed the bare groove, my chest tightened. I wanted to rip the whole tablecloth off just to jolt the room awake. After dinner, I stacked containers in the trash and ran the dishwasher. Mark went back to his laptop, shallow distraction, volume low. My sister took Logan to his room with a movie on her phone. It looked normal from the outside, like any tired family evening. Inside my head, it felt like someone was slowly turning a screw. Later, when the house settled, I walked past the bedroom again. Their door was cracked, glow from the screen spilling into the hallway. I heard her voice, calm and firm, like a teacher laying out rules. "Adults overreact when they are stressed, that does not mean they are right." Something in her tone made it clear who she meant by adults. I went to my room and pretended to scroll on my phone. Really, I just stared at nothing, replaying every small interaction. The secret treasure line, the slip, the cutoff playdate, the coaching. Honestly, by then it was not even about the jewelry anymore. It was about the feeling that reality kept getting edited around me. Much later, there was a soft shuffle outside my door. I looked up and saw Logan's shadow hanging in the doorway. "You are supposed to be in bed," I said, keeping my tone flat. He stepped inside, bare feet quiet on the floor, eyes bright. "I know where it is," he whispered, almost like a brag. My heart kicked once hard enough to hurt. "Where?" I asked, but I did not move toward him. He leaned against the wall, fingertips tracing a line along the paint. "If I told you, you would yell," he answered, gaze never leaving my face. "So why would I do that if you already do not like me?" "That is not true," I shot back, and it came out too fast. "Then stop looking at me like I am bad," he replied, voice cold and tiny. He pushed off the wall and walked backward toward the hall. "Anyway, Mom told me not to talk about it anymore," he added. "Because grown-ups who cannot keep track of their stuff do not deserve it." He waited a second, like he wanted the words to land, then turned away. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling in my lap. Part of me wanted to run after him and demand the full story. Another part stayed frozen, because this was not just a kid being sneaky. This was the moment I realized my own family might be building a lie together. "I am not sitting next to her." That was the first thing out of Logan's mouth that night. He stood by the table with his arms stiff at his sides. My parents were still taking off their shoes by the door. The whole room tightened before anyone even sat down. My sister shot him a warning look that could have cut glass. "You are sitting where I tell you," she said, hand gripping his shoulder. He jerked away and slid into the chair farthest from me. He kept his eyes on my hands like he expected something dramatic. I pulled my chair in and pretended that did not sting. My mom breezed in carrying a dessert tray like this was a normal reunion. "So," she started, voice bright enough to hurt, "big family dinner, I love this." My dad clapped Mark on the back and asked about work, casual and loud. Nobody mentioned the missing ring, not yet, but you could feel it hovering. It sat in the empty air between us like an extra place setting. Mark filled glasses, moving around the table with forced calm. He cracked a joke about overcooked food and my mom laughed too hard. My dad asked Logan about school, trying to break the tension. Logan pushed peas around his plate and shrugged like none of this mattered. My sister kept one hand on his chair, anchor and guard at the same time. I focused on my plate and the hollow space on my finger. It throbbed in my awareness more than any noise in the room. "So," my dad said eventually, voice dropping a notch, "any news on the situation?" He flicked his eyes toward my hand and then away fast. My mom busied herself with napkins like they suddenly needed folding. Mark cleared his throat and stepped right into it. "I called the jeweler today," he said, fork resting on his plate. "They said we should file an insurance claim if we truly cannot locate it." The word claim hit the table like a small grenade. My sister's entire posture snapped upright at once. "You are really doing that?" She shot across the table, eyes narrow. "You are documenting this like some official theft report?" Mark age. Elder gazed for a moment, jaw tight but voice calm. "It is a lot of money," he answered, fingers drumming once then stilling. "We need paperwork if it never turns up, that is basic. So now there is a record saying my kid stole your ring." She leaned forward, chair scraping, face flushed with outrage. "I never used his name with them," Mark replied, shoulders tense. "I just told them the piece disappeared in the house, nothing more." She huffed out a bitter laugh that made my mom flinch. "Come on," my dad muttered, lifting his hands in a tired gesture. "We are family, we can sort this out without accusations." "Nobody is accusing anyone," I said, and even I heard the lie. I felt every eye land on me like pins. "I just want the truth," I added, softer but no less sharp. Logan stabbed his fork into his food, hard enough to tilt the plate. "Maybe the truth is you should not have nice things," he muttered. The words were quiet but clear enough for everyone to catch. My mom's head snapped in his direction, shock written all over her face. My sister squeezed his shoulder, but she did not correct him. "Excuse me," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. He looked up, eyes defiant, cheeks slightly flushed with challenge. "You keep saying I took it," he went on, chin lifted. "I did not, but maybe now it is somewhere safer." He dragged out that last word like he enjoyed every syllable. "Safer where?" My voice cracked on the last word. He smiled small and tight, then took a bite like he was done. My sister leaned closer, whispering low in his ear, calming and firm. He relaxed against her and focused on his plate again. He had thrown his little bomb and moved on like it was nothing. My dad shifted in his seat, uncomfortable and restless. "Buddy," he started, trying to sound light, "if you know something, just say so." Logan shrugged, not even glancing his way. "I do not," he replied, tapping the edge of his plate with his fork. "But at least it is safe from people who do not deserve it." That line hit me like a slap. "Who told you that?" I asked, eyes locked on him. He froze for a fraction of a second, then flicked a glance at my sister. "No one," he replied too quickly, shoulders creeping up to his ears. My stomach twisted, because the echo of her words was obvious. My mom finally broke. "This is going too far," she burst out, napkin crumpled in her fist. "Logan, sweetie, did you see the ring that day or not?" He stared at the table and swung his legs under the chair. "I saw it before," he answered slowly, "but not when it vanished." So now we had a new word in the mix. Before. Not never. Before. I caught Mark's eye and watched the same calculation happen on his face. My sister jumped back in fast, voice sharp as glass. "He is done answering interrogations, this is not court." She pushed her chair back a few inches, ready to bolt if needed. "You are all ganging up on a child to cover an adult mistake." She glared at me like I personally designed this entire ambush. "I did not lose it," I answered, every word dragged through grit. My dad rubbed his forehead, tired and frustrated. "Look, accidents happen," he said, focusing on me alone. "You have a lot going on, you might have taken it off somewhere." The doubt in his tone cut deeper than if he had yelled. "Why is everyone more comfortable believing I am irresponsible?" I asked. "Because that is easier," Mark murmured almost under his breath. My mom stared at her plate and did not argue. My sister gave a humorless smile that made my hands clench. Maybe because that fits the pattern, she tossed out, not bothering to soften it. What pattern? I demanded, heartbeat roaring in my ears. She tilted her head, studying me like she weighed how far to push. You misplace things, forget appointments, spin stories when stressed, she listed. So when something expensive vanishes, yeah, my first thought is not my son. She shoved her plate away like the entire meal was contaminated. That is not fair, Mark cut in, leaning forward now. She is not perfect, sure, but that does not make her a liar. Hearing him defend me finally gave me one small breath of relief. My sister rolled her eyes, then turned her aim directly at him. You were not even home when it happened, you are just backing your fiancé. Yes, he replied, voice steady, because I trust her. He let that hang in the air for a beat. And because your kid keeps dropping hints like he knows more. Logan's face reddened and he squeezed his hands into fists. I do not, he snapped, but the denial sounded weaker now. My mom tried again, gentler but still firm. Logan, honey, if you picked it up that day, we can handle that. We just need to know if it went somewhere by mistake. He chewed his lip and stared at my glass instead of any of us. The silence stretched so long that my pulse actually hurt. Finally he mumbled, maybe it is somewhere you cannot. Wreck it. His eyes flicked to my finger and stayed there. I swallowed hard, throat tight, while everyone absorbed that line. So you do know where it is, I said, voice low. He shrugged again, but his breathing had sped up just enough to notice. My sister scooted her chair closer and wrapped her arm around him. That is enough, she declared like a judge ending a trial. He does not know anything helpful, and this whole thing is abusive. Abusive. That word hit the room like it sucked all the oxygen out. My dad opened his mouth, then shut it again, completely thrown. Abusive, I repeated, stunned, because I want my engagement ring back. She stared me down, unwavering. Because you are hounding a kid and twisting his words, yes, she answered. Because you are making this house feel unsafe to him. You know what feels unsafe, I shot back, hands trembling now. Waking up and realizing a child can steal from you and smirk about it. My mom whispered my name like a warning, eyes wide with panic. Logan leaned farther into my sister, but there was a flicker of triumph there. He had the entire adult table pivoting around his reactions. Mark pushed his chair back, the scrape loud in the quiet. This is going nowhere, he said, palms flat on the table. We still have to report the loss, whatever we argue about in this room. My dad nodded reluctantly, torn between sides he did not want to choose. My mom looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. You file that report, my sister shot at him, and my kid's name will never leave my mouth again. She pointed a finger across the table like a weapon. If anyone from insurance or anyone else comes around, I am done cooperating. Mark's mouth set into a hard line. His name never had to be involved until you made it about him, he answered. Logan suddenly straightened, eyes bright in a way that made my stomach drop. The ring is safe now, he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Safe from Elise so she cannot lose it or break it again. Again. The word hung there with a weird emphasis that did not match reality. My dad turned to him slowly, eyebrows drawn. What do you mean again? He asked, calm but pressing. Logan blinked once, then twice, realizing he had overstepped. I heard Mom say that, he muttered, shrinking under the scrutiny. My sister's face went pale and then bright with anger in one breath. We talked in private, she snapped, tone icy, and you twisted my words. She grabbed her napkin and crumpled it into a tight ball. I told you adults make mistakes with important things, that is all. She glared at me like I had orchestrated this confession. Do not put phrases in his mouth and pretend they are mine. My mom leaned back, finally letting out a breath she had held forever. I think we all need to be honest right now, she said quietly. Has anyone in this room moved the ring since that day, even once? No one spoke. Mark shook his head, my parents stayed silent, my sister stared at me. Logan looked down, then slowly lifted his gaze to me again. Maybe it wants to stay with someone who actually cares, he said. There was no way a kid came up with that line alone. My chest burned, and not just from anger anymore. It was grief, humiliation, betrayal, all packed into one sharp hit. I am done eating, I said, pushing back from the table. My legs felt unsteady, but I stayed upright out of sheer stubbornness. If anyone finds the ring, you know where I sleep, I added. My voice shook on sleep, and I hated that they could hear it. I walked away before they could see anything else on my face. In the hallway, I heard my mom whisper that this was a disaster. My dad muttered something about talking later, his voice worn and flat. Mark followed me after a moment, footsteps slow and careful. You handled that better than I expected, he said from the doorway. I laughed once, short and bitter, because it felt like the opposite. I feel like I just lost more than jewelry, I answered, staring at the floor. He stepped closer and rested a hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. I heard every word, he told me, his voice low. Whatever they say, you are not crazy, you are not making this up. I wanted to believe him more than anything, but doubt still gnawed. From the dining room, voices rose and fell in sharp bursts. My sister accused everyone of ganging up, my mom tried to smooth things over. My dad talked about therapists and boundaries, which only made her angrier. Logan's smaller voice cut through every now and then like a knife. Each time he spoke, the adults shifted around him, not the other way around. Standing there in my own hallway, I realized something simple and awful. This was not just about the ring anymore, maybe it never was. It was about control, about narratives, about who gets believed in a family. That kid held the secret to something that mattered deeply to me. And every adult around him seemed more willing to protect his story than my reality. I walked into the first pawn shop with the ring photo ready. My phone felt heavy in my hand, heavier than it should have. Hi, I am looking for something specific, I said to the clerk. My voice sounded almost normal, which honestly surprised me. He glanced at the screen, then at me, then back again. Nope, nothing like that here, he answered, already turning toward a drawer. How far back do your records go? I asked, fingers pressing into the counter. He shrugged and muttered something about months and volume, clearly bored already. I stepped back outside and just stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Part of me felt stupid for even trying, like this was movie logic. Another part refused to stop, because sitting home with that emptiness hurt worse. So I picked another address on my phone and started driving again. Second place, same routine, same tired questions. Have you seen this ring? I asked, pushing the photo closer than necessary. The woman behind the counter squinted at the screen and shook her head. If it came in, I would remember that stone, she said, then moved on. I hit 3 more shops before noon, each one chipping away at my energy. Each clerk had the same tired patience for distraught people who lost valuables. I did not blame them, but their casual shrugs felt like small slaps. By the 4th one, I started wondering if I had really lost it after all. You know that feeling when your own memory turns slippery? Like maybe you did put it somewhere and your brain cut that scene. That doubt is loud, even when you know deep down you are right. I drove to the next spot anyway, more out of stubbornness than hope. The 5th shop barely looked open, door sticking when I pulled. Inside, the air felt heavier than outside, enough to slow my steps. A guy behind the counter looked up from some paperwork and frowned. Help you? He asked, not unkindly, just wary of wasting his time. I am searching for a ring that went missing, I said. I handed him my phone without another word, fingers slightly shaking now. He studied the photo longer than anyone else had bothered. Then he glanced past me toward a display near the back wall. My vision tunneled on whatever he was staring at behind me. I turned slowly because some part of me already knew. There it was, sitting in a row with a few other pieces. I recognized the setting first, then the way the band curved, then everything. I moved toward the case like I was walking underwater. Up close there was no doubt, every detail matched what lived on my finger. There is an engraving inside, I managed, throat dry, can you check that? He unlocked the case and lifted it out with careful hands. He tilted it toward the light and peered inside the band. Yeah, there is something in here, he said, turning back toward me. He read out the initials and date, every character landing like a hammer. I had to grab the edge of the counter or I was going down. That is mine, I said, and my voice broke halfway through. I fumbled for the original receipt in my photos, digits blurring for a second. Here, this is the purchase paperwork and the engraving details, I said. The clerk looked between my phone and the ring, taking a longer breath. Okay, slow down, he replied, tapping a stack of intake slips nearby. It came in yesterday, so there is a seller on file. My heart thudded loud enough that I was sure he could hear it. Can I see the form? I asked, already reaching into my bag for ID. He took my license and studied it for a beat, then nodded. I cannot show you everything, but you can look while I hold it, he said. He flipped through the slips, thumb moving over dates and values. Then he stopped and pulled one half free from the stack. The top corner showed a date from the previous afternoon. The photo stapled to it was my ring, taken badly but still obvious. Below that was a name, an address I knew too well. My sister's name stared back at me from the paper, neat and unmistakable. For a second, I honestly thought my vision glitched. Like it had to be someone else with that same first and last name. But the address matched, right down to the house number we shared. I felt heat rise up my neck, then drain, leaving me shaky and cold. I need a copy of that, I said, voice lower than before. Legally, I cannot give you a copy, he started, sounding apologetic now. You have a police report or anything like that, I can talk to them. I nodded even though I did not yet. Can I take a picture of it while you hold it? I asked. He hesitated, then lifted it closer to me so the details showed clearly. Make it quick, he said, glancing toward the door like he expected trouble. My hands trembled as I snapped the photo, then checked that it saved. Can I get the ring back now? I asked, trying to sound steady. I need to keep it here lock. Up until this is sorted, he replied. It is technically evidence now, since you are saying it was stolen. The word stolen bounced around my skull and would not settle. Looking back, this is where I crossed a line inside myself. Before this moment, I kept giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. Standing there with that slip and her name, something hardened in me. I was done asking nicely, done doubting my own sanity. I stepped outside and the brightness hit me like a slap. My first instinct was to call my sister and just scream. Instead, I called Mark because I needed someone on my side first. He answered on the second ring, voice rushed like he expected bad news. Did you find anything? He asked before I could breathe properly. I found it, I managed, leaning against my car with my knees weak. It is at a pawn shop and your future sister-in-law sold it. There was a sharp silence on the other end, the kind that hums. Are you sure? He asked, but not in a doubting way this time. They showed me the intake form, I said, exhaling hard between words. It has her name and our address and a picture of the ring. My voice wobbled, anger and hurt tangled so tight I could barely separate them. Okay, he replied, tone shifting into something focused and cold. Stay there if you can, talk to the owner about next steps. He wants a police report before releasing anything, which makes sense, I said. I took photos of the paperwork and the ring, just in case. I am going to leave work, he said, no hesitation now. We will handle this together, I promise you are not alone with it. That sentence loosened something in my chest for the first time that day. Still, I knew there was a conversation coming that no one could soften. I drove home with my jaw clenched so tight it ached. Every red light felt like the universe pushing my patience on purpose. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were buzzing. I sat there for a full minute, staring at the front door, rehearsing nothing. When I walked in, my sister was in the living room with the TV on. She glanced up briefly, then focused back on her screen like nothing mattered. Logan was on the floor with some toy cars, making low engine noises. He glanced at me once, then looked away fast, too fast. We need to talk, I said, standing between her and the screen. She rolled her eyes and hit mute with an irritated jab. If this is another lecture about your missing jewelry, save it, she snapped. My heartbeat slowed, not faster this time, just heavier. I went to several pawn shops today, I said, watching her face carefully. Good for you, I hope you bought yourself a new personality, she shot back. I ignored that jab and kept going, because I had no more room for detours. And at one of them, I saw my ring in the case. Her smile dropped for a fraction of a second before she caught it. Lots of rings in those places, she answered, shrugging like it meant nothing. This one had our engraving inside, I said, my voice dead calm now. And the intake paperwork had your full name and our address on it. The room went very quiet after that. I swear even the background hum of everything felt like it cut out. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, a tiny calculation happening behind them. What are you implying? She finally asked, every word slow and controlled. I am saying you took my engagement ring to a pawn shop, I answered. I pulled out my phone and held up the photo of the slip. Here is your signature next to the description and the payout number. My hand did not shake anymore, which honestly scared me more than if it did. She stared at the screen, then leaned back and crossed her arms. Anyone could write my name on a form, she said, tone flat as stone. Do you listen to yourself at all? I asked, disbelief sharpening my words. I saw the ID field, you handed them your license to get cash. Logan's toy car stopped mid-race on the carpet. He watched us now, eyes flicking between our faces like a tennis match. Go to your room, she told him, not looking away from me. He did not move, which told me this was more interesting than anything upstairs. You are calling me a thief in front of my son, she said. You called my kid a criminal for days, but this crosses your line. Her mouth twisted into something bitter and ugly, and I barely recognized her. You have no idea what pressure I am under, she added, voice climbing. Then explain it, I shot back, stepping closer, refusing to retreat. Explain how my ring ended up on a pawn slip with your information. She ran a hand through her hair, restless and agitated. Maybe if you did not flaunt that thing I would not have snapped, she burst out. There it was, right out in the open. My chest burned, heat rising so fast it made my eyes water. So this was about jealousy, I asked, stunned at how small that sounded. You risked our relationship over spit. Over some twisted payback. You do not get it, she said, stabbing a finger toward me. In this house you make all the rules, every single one. You have the fiancé, the ring, the savings, the respect, she listed. I am the screw-up who had to move in with my kid, remember? I opened my mouth to answer, then shut it again because part of that hurt. I never used that against you, I said, quieter now but no less firm. I offered you a place to stay, not a prison sentence. She laughed once, harsh and humorless, nothing like the sister I grew up with. You offered charity so you could feel generous, she countered, eyes bright. You control the lease, the bills, even what food comes into this kitchen. Logan sees that kids are not stupid, they understand who holds power. So yeah, I wanted you to know how it feels to lose something precious. Logan's voice cut through the tension before I could answer. Mom told me you never share, he said, small and intense. That you keep everything nice for yourself and we get leftovers. He looked at me like he was repeating a lesson, not sharing a thought. Did she also tell you to hide my ring? I asked, eyes on him now. He shifted his weight, foot tapping faster against the floor. She said if I kept quiet, we would finally catch you being mean, he blurted. His face crumpled at the edges, but the words were already out. My sister lunged forward like she could shove the words back in. Stop talking, she snapped, grabbing his arm, voice cracking on the last word. He yanked away, tears starting for real this time. You told me she deserved it, he cried, pointing his shaking finger at me. The room spun differently after that. You know those moments where time slows and speeds up together? I watched my sister's expression go from rage to panic to something like shame. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then reached for him again. I did not mean it that way, she said, tone suddenly shattered. I was angry, I vented, I should not have dragged you into it. You told me she cares more about that ring than us, he sobbed. You said making her scared would teach her she is not special. He broke then, completely, shoulders shaking while he cried into his hands. It was not the fake crying from earlier days, it hit from somewhere deeper. My own eyes stung, but I refused to let anything fall yet. I felt like if I started, I would not stop. Where is it? I asked, my voice steady only because I forced it. I know you took it in that day, but where is it now? She looked at me, then at Logan, then away toward the window. I needed money, she whispered finally, and I convinced myself you owed me. For what? I asked, honestly stunned at the mental gymnastics. For years of you judging me, she threw back, anger flaring again. For getting everything right while I scramble behind you cleaning my messes. For making me feel like a guest in my own family's life. I never asked you to steal from me to balance some imaginary score, I snapped. You could have asked for help, you could have yelled, anything but this. She rubbed at her face hard, like she wanted to scrub off the last hour. I thought I could get it back before you noticed, she admitted, voice rough. How exactly? I asked, because I needed to hear the logic out loud. You got cash for it, then what? Magic it home again somehow. She winced because there was no good answer to that. I thought maybe it would just be gone and you would blame yourself again, she muttered. That part hit almost harder than the theft itself. It meant she counted on my self-doubt, on my habit of turning guilt inward. She knew I would question my memory before I questioned her. And she weaponized that on purpose, which still makes my stomach turn. I talked to the shop owner, I said, shifting my focus back to the practical. He is holding it, and he wants a report before releasing anything. Her head snapped up, fear cutting through the rage like a knife. You called the cops? She asked, voice suddenly small. Not yet, I answered, and even that felt like a massive restraint. But we are going to, because otherwise the ring stays locked away. Logan gasped, fresh panic replacing the earlier tears. Are they taking Mom to jail? He asked, eyes huge and wild. His question sliced straight through me. This is the part I am not proud of, by the way. For a second, I actually considered dropping everything to protect her record. Even with that slip in my phone, even with my empty finger. No one is dragging anyone anywhere tonight, I said finally. But there are consequences when you sell something that is not yours. If I let this slide, I am basically saying it is fine to do again. My voice shook not from rage now, but from sheer weight. My sister sank down onto the couch like her legs gave out. I screwed up, she whispered, staring at the floor. Yeah, I lied, no softness left to offer, you did in a massive way. Logan curled into her side, clutching her sleeve with both hands. He peeked at me over her arm, cheeks still wet and blotchy. I did not know they would take it to a store, he said. I thought she hid it somewhere here to trick you. That admission twisted the knife in a new direction. So you helped keep the secret? I asked, keeping my tone even. You saw them handle it and decided I deserved the fear. He nodded once, then hid his face again, shoulders shaking. I just wanted Mom not to cry about money, he choked out. And that right there is where everything got complicated. Because I could see the messed up logic through his eyes. He thought he was helping his mother survive something bigger. He had no clue he was helping her blow our family up from inside. Mark walked in on that scene, the quiet kind of chaos. My sister slumped on the couch, Logan clinging to her, me standing rigid. He looked at my face first, then at hers, then at the boy. What happened? He asked, voice low, dread already there. I held up my phone with the photo open. She sold the ring yesterday, I said, my tone almost too calm. The shop has it, they have her information, and he just filled in the rest. Mark's jaw tightened so hard I could see the muscle jump. He turned to my sister, eyes darker than I had ever seen them. You let her doubt herself for days while you knew, he asked. You watched her tear this house apart while you counted pawn money. He shook his head slowly, like he could not believe the person in front of him. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, then finally spoke. I was going to fix it before the wedding, she said, almost pleading. I thought I could buy it back once things improved. Even as she said it, she looked like she knew how thin that sounded. You did not just take a ring, Mark said, voice steady but vicious. You broke her trust, mine, everyone's, and you dragged your kid into the lie. Logan whimpered and shrank against her side, clutching tighter. I wanted to scoop him up and push her out the door at the same time. Standing there, I realized something heavy and simple. I could fight for my ring through police and paperwork. But fixing whatever this was between us would not be that clean. Even with the truth out, some things do not snap back into place. I looked at my sister, then at the boy who had followed her lead. I'm getting my ring back, I said, final in a way I rarely am. And then we are talking about what your future looks like under my roof. Even as the words left my mouth, I knew nothing about our lives would feel safe again. I want to report a theft. That is how the last part started. My voice sounded steadier than I felt as I stood at the station counter. Mark was next to me with his arms folded tight across his chest. The officer glanced up from his screen and gave me a quick once-over. "Okay, tell me what was taken," he said, fingers already moving on the keyboard. "My engagement ring," I answered, pushing the photo of it across the counter. "And I know exactly who took it and where it is right now." His eyebrows lifted a little at that. "Slow down and walk me through it," he said, leaning closer. Mark slid my phone next to the picture so both showed the same ring. Then he opened the photo of the pawn intake form with my sister's details. I laid it all out in short, clipped pieces. How it disappeared from my room while my nephew was there. How I searched, how my sister defended him while hinting I was careless. How I tracked it down through shops until I found it under glass. The officer studied the picture with her name and address printed clearly. "This is your sibling?" he asked, tapping the form with one finger. "Yes," I answered, feeling that word hit harder than it ever had. "She sold it yesterday and pretended to help me look for it." He asked a few more questions about timelines and who lives in the house. Every answer felt like I was dragging my private mess into the light. At one point he paused and looked me right in the eyes. "Are you planning to press charges against her?" he asked, tone neutral. Right there I froze. Because that was the real question hiding under everything else. Mark shifted beside me, shoulders squaring before he spoke. "She stole several $1,000s from us and used a child as cover," he said. The officer nodded and clicked through something on his screen. "If you want the property released and this documented, we open a case," he said. "That does not mean she goes to prison tomorrow, but it creates a record." I swallowed hard and heard my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "I want my ring back," I said, choosing each word slowly. "And I want this on file so she cannot twist it later." I took a breath that shook more than I wanted. I do not want my nephew traumatized by seeing his mom dragged away in cuff. As he gave a small nod, like he heard the conflict in that. "We can flag it for the district attorney and note your wishes," he said. "It will still be treated as a crime, but your input matters in outcomes." Mark rested his hand lightly on my back, a small steady point. We signed statements, answered more questions, handed over our copies. Then the officer called the shop in front of us and confirmed the ring's hold. Hearing my sister's name read out in that flat official tone made my stomach flip. It turned her from difficult relative into case number, faster than I expected. "Once the paperwork clears, you can pick it up," he said. "Could be later today, could be tomorrow, depends how fast things move." We thanked him and stepped outside into the parking lot. I finally let out a laugh that sounded nothing like relief. "I cannot believe I just did that," I said, staring at the sky. "You did the bare minimum to protect yourself," Mark answered, voice firm. "The fact that we are even debating that shows how deep this dynamic runs." He looked at me like he was trying to anchor me back to reality. Driving home felt different this time. No frantic searching, no guessing, just a slow, cold anger settling in. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my hands had stopped shaking. They felt strangely calm, even though everything else inside still buzzed. Inside the house, my sister was pacing the living room with her phone in hand. Logan sat on the couch hugging a cushion like a shield. The second she saw us, she pointed her phone at me like evidence. "Did you seriously go to the cops?" she demanded, voice already raised. "Yes," I answered, putting my keys down with deliberate care. "They have the ring, they have the paperwork, and now they have a report." Her mouth dropped open and then snapped shut again. "You are unbelievable," she spat, pacing faster. "I am unbelievable," I repeated, that word tasting bitter. "You stole my engagement ring and pawned it, then watched me fall apart. You coached your kid to cover for you, and I am the extreme one." My voice climbed with each sentence, no matter how much I tried to hold it down. She waved her phone like a threat, eyes bright with fury. "Do you think charges will not affect me getting work?" she snapped. "Do you think this will not land on him when people talk?" she added, jerking her chin at Logan. That is what you are doing to your own family right now. What you did already landed on him, I fired back, hand pointing before I could stop it. You pulled him into the lie, you made him choose sides, you put him in the middle. He is the one who will carry this story, not just me, I added. He is the kid whose mom snatched her sister's ring and lied for days. Logan's face crumpled again at those words. He buried his face deeper into the cushion, shoulders rising around his ears. I hated the image and still could not take it back. There was no path here that spared him completely, no version where this did not sting. Mark stepped between us slightly, not blocking, just creating space. The shop is holding the ring until the report clears, he said. The officer has your name on file from the sale records, he added. It would have been reported even if we did nothing. She shook her head hard like she could fling the facts away. You could have handled this inside the family, she argued. You could have kept it quiet, gotten the ring, moved on, she insisted. You chose to humiliate me instead. I chose to stop living like I imagined this, I said, voice rough. For days, everyone around me asked if I lost it, not if someone took it. I will not let you rewrite this into some misunderstanding, I added. Because the next time something goes missing, guess who gets blamed again? My parents arrived after that because of course they did. I do not know who called whom first, but it all moved fast. My mom came in already teary, my dad tight-lipped and tired. The second my sister saw them, she went into performance mode. She pressed charges on her own sister, she blurted before anyone sat down. No one is behind bars, I said, cutting in sharp. There is a record of what happened, and the ring is being released back. My dad put up both hands like a ref before a fight. Everybody sit, he said, voice low and serious. I stayed standing because I honestly could not bear a calm circle. Mark sat on the arm of a chair, staying close but giving me room. My mom perched on the edge of the couch near Logan and stroked his back. My dad looked at me first. Walk us through what you did today in simple order, he said. So I did again, this time slower for them. By the time I mentioned my sister's signed form, my mom's face had gone blank. My dad turned his gaze to her, eyes sharp now. Is that accurate? He asked, no softness, no extra words. She stared at the coffee table, jaw working before sound came out. Yes, she finally muttered, barely audible, I signed it. My mom flinched like someone hit her. You had that much nerve, she whispered, hands shaking in her lap. You watched your sister tear this place apart every night, she added. And you let your child watch her doubt her own mind. My sister's eyes filled, but the anger stayed, stubborn and hot. I was desperate, she repeated, like that word should cancel the rest. You always rescue her first, you always take her side, she said to our parents. I am the one who gets lectures, not compassion. That is not what this is, my dad cut in, voice rising for the first time. This is not about who we comforted more at 13, he said. This is about you selling something that did not belong to you, he added. And then recruiting your kid to help cover it up. Logan sniffled loudly between them, eyes darting from face to face. Are they going to lock you up? He asked, looking at his mother. My mom wrapped an arm around him automatically and pulled him closer. We do not know what will happen yet, she said, voice trembling. That answer gutted me in a new way. Because this was the part I never planned for when I dialed the station. I wanted justice, proof, my sanity back, sure. I did not picture an 8-year-old asking if his mom was going away. I told the officer I do not want you dragged out of here, I said. My sister blinked like she did not understand the words. I do not control every step, but I made my position clear, I added. That is the most mercy I have in me right now. Mark exhaled slowly, like he had been holding his breath for minutes. We still have to talk about living arrangements, he said. Because whatever the court decides, this house cannot stay like this, he added. You undermined our security in a way we cannot pretend away. My sister's eyes sharpened again, panic edging in. You are kicking us out, she asked, voice high and thin. After everything I just admitted, you are throwing us on the street. She looked at my parents like they were the jury. We will not let you end up on a sidewalk, my dad answered. But you cannot stay here, not after this level of betrayal, he said. We will help you find a temporary place or cover a deposit, he added. But your sister deserves to feel safe in her own home. My mom nodded, tears sliding down her face now. This house is under her name and his, she said, glancing at Mark. They invited you in with trust that you shattered, she added. We love you, but there has to be distance for a while. Logan grabbed his mother's arm with both hands. We have to leave, he asked, voice small, eyes huge. She pulled him into her side and kissed the top of his head. No one wants us here anymore, she said, staring directly at me. That is not what I want, I snapped, feeling something crack again. I did not want any of this, I wanted a peaceful house, I said. I wanted to plan a wedding, not argue about police reports, I added. But we cannot sleep under the same roof like nothing happened. He looked at me across the room, expression twisted with confusion and hurt. You told the cops on my mom, he whispered. You told everyone she was bad, he added, voice breaking. He would not look away, and I could not look away either. I told the truth about what she did, I said, every word heavy. That does not mean I think you are bad, I added. It means I will not let anyone treat me like my fear is a joke, I said. I am allowed to protect myself, even from people I love. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. Do you still want me around? He asked, quiet and raw. That question hit deeper than anything else that day. Because I did, but I could not answer yes without lying somehow. I care about you, I said, feeling my throat tighten. And right now I am angry and hurt and exhausted, I added. I need time where I am not the target of some lesson, I said. After that, we can see what contact looks like that does not break me. He frowned, not really understanding, which made sense. Kids want clarity, not complicated adult nuance. I watched him tuck his face against my mom's shoulder. He did not speak again for a long time. Arrangements moved weirdly fast after that. My parents offered to let them stay with them for a while. My sister refused at first, then agreed when she saw no other path. Mark and I stayed mostly quiet, letting them sort the logistics out. At one point she stood in the hallway with a bag half packed. She looked at me, eyes tired, anger flickering lower now. You really picked a piece of metal over your own sister, she said. She waited like she expected that line to snap something in me. It was never about only the ring, I answered. It was about you deciding my peace of mind was disposable, I said. You chose to scare me, then let a child twist the knife, I added. If I let that slide, I am Basie. Callie telling you to do it again. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then shrugged one shoulder. Guess we just see each other in court then, she muttered. The words sounded brave, but her hands shook as she zipped the bag. She walked away before I could respond. When they finally left with my parents, the house went strange and quiet. No kid noise, no arguing down the hall, no slammed cabinet doors. Just me and Mark standing in the living room surrounded by their absence. I felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Later that week, we went back to the shop together. The clerk retrieved the ring from the safe and placed it on a small pad. I picked it up with 2 fingers and slipped it back on my hand. My finger felt both familiar and foreign with the weight again. You sure you want to keep the same one? Mark asked softly. There are memories baked into that thing now, he added. I turned at once, feeling the band press against skin. I am not letting her take this from me twice, I said. On the drive home, the silence felt gentler. I stared at the ring and thought about the kid who watched it vanish. I thought about my sister in my parents' spare room, probably ranting. I thought about the case number on some computer instead of just my guilt. Here is the part I keep circling back to while I write this. I know I am not spotless in all of this. I yelled, I pushed, I let my frustrations spill onto an 8-year-old sometimes. I am not proud of every sentence that left my mouth in those days. But I also know I did not create the first lie. I did not hand my ID across a counter and walk away with cash. I did not whisper to a kid that his aunt deserved to be terrified. I reacted to a mess somebody else built, badly sometimes, but still as a reaction. Now my parents call and ask if I am open to discussions and family healing. Logan sent one short message through my mom that just said, "I miss you." My sister posted something online about betrayal and fake people. The case is somewhere in the system, moving at its own slow pace. Inside this house, though, the rule is different now. I keep my valuables locked, my boundaries clearer, my patience shorter for gaslighting. Mark and I still argue about wedding details, but not about whether I imagined theft. That kind of doubt is gone, and I am not letting it back in. So yeah, that is how I ended up being the woman who reported her own sister. That is how I became the aunt who drew a line that looked cruel from the outside. Some days I wonder if I overcorrected, other days I think I went too easy. Most days I just look at the ring and remember that first smug little look. Am I the villain? Maybe in their version I am. In mine, I finally stopped letting family mean you can hurt me without consequence. And honestly, I am still learning how to live with that choice.